Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Coetzee. Did I pronounce your name correctly there now, or did I fail again?
Vasco, you're getting better.
Yeah, every day. It's repetition. Iteration is what makes us better.
Continuous improvement.
Yeah, and I did remember the writer from that we discussed yesterday. That's John Maxwell Coetzee. He's a South African Nobel Prize winner for literature. So that's somebody you share the surname with. Yes. Right. So let's dive into books now that we're talking about authors as well. We'll talk about teams in a second. But first, John, share with us the book that most inspired you in your career as a Scrum Master.
It was a difficult one to come up with because I think this is there's just so many books that I constantly read, and not something specifically to Agile or to Scrum specifically. I would say for me, the one that resonated the most was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I read this book many years ago, probably around 10 years ago for the first time. And the first time I read it, I realized that how appropriate it is in the Agile world, because we constantly have, and of course, ownership, talking to, let's say, product owners. And this is one of the things that I would also recommend product owners to read when they ask me what is the best book that they could read. And I would also say Extreme Ownership. The reason why I like it is because it talks about my previous topic, because it's about ownership and the team's ability to understand what makes a high-performing team. And we don't understand how important it is that we understand each other and trust each other and have a camaraderie in the team in order to enable us to deliver. Otherwise, we are just individuals working towards a relatively common goal. We don't work necessarily as a team. We may have parallel paths, but we don't necessarily expose the opportunities that we have to work collaboratively together and optimally together.
To work collaboratively and optimally together. I really like that. And that's indeed another facet of the whole concept of ownership, right? Because we can't work as a team if we don't have shared ownership of anything, right? If everyone is working on their separate task with their own separate schedule, with their own separate stakeholder who needs that task to be completed, then we are not a team. No matter how much we try, we can't make it a team because everybody will have different, sometimes conflicting interests and goals, right?
And the idea of shared ownership is often misunderstood because, like, how do you keep a team accountable? How does a team collectively or shared ownership even, what is that? And we often hear this from managers, like, who are we going to keep accountable? They want rather to keep a person accountable, because then you can tell that person, this is what you need to do, and this is why I don't like what you did. But shared ownership has to do with that distinction between being accountable and actually owning something. Being held accountable is different to being an owner of something. And that to me is where the penny drops, where if you understand that, the difference between the two of those things, we can much better understand each other.
And that also kind of drives us into understanding that our role as Scrum Masters is not only to help the teams know what they need to do, but also to look at what they need to do from a perspective of ownership. And we're talking about shared ownership here because it's a team, right? It's not just individuals. And that raises in my mind the idea that very often we are not even sure of what it is that we own. I just give a very, very simple, even simplistic example, is that maybe the tester thinks they own the timely execution of the tests, while the developers believe that they own the writing of the code, when in fact, none of them owns that. Those are just kind of stepping stones we need to deliver on something we own as a team, which is the delivery of value to someone else outside the team.
Well, it's funny you mention a tester separate from a software engineer, because sometimes we, and I say software engineer, but I mean, some teams that we work with are business teams as well. But I mean, I've just come from the World Agility Forum in Portugal, and the discussions were in so many different areas. In Agile is permeating throughout the industries, in very interesting industries actually. And what I see coming up time and time again is this idea of the roles that are assigned to us, and that we think that the role is the thing that should define what it is that we do. But again, coming back to the point of ownership, is that if you own something fully, you own the purpose or the objective of the team. And whatever it is or skill that is that you bring to the team, you shouldn't be defined by the roles that you do. Your job description shouldn't be the thing that defines you. Your job description is to meet that goal for whatever it takes to get there. And that to me is much more meaningful and much more powerful to add to that list of things that a team member should be. And that's the role description of a team member.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely need to come back to maybe even do a bonus episode, Jean, on the topic of ownership. But now let's move on to the teams and, of course, the object of our work, our focus, those whom we want to help, and how sometimes they can become their own worst enemies as well. So share a story of a team you work with, Jean, and walk us through like how those small little behaviors and attitudes really grew over time and became a problem for that team.
I like to use examples of deadlines because the word deadline has such a negative connotation. As soon as you mention it, people, I've heard all these statistics of deadlines being worse than a fear of certain things like spiders or even lack of sleep. There's all kinds of connotations that are being made towards deadlines. But I feel like obsession about deadlines has been one of the struggles that has brought a lot of teams down, where they are trying so hard to meet someone's deadline that they grind themselves into the ground to a point where they have phrases like, I have a knife to my throat, which they would share with you.
I'm under the gun.
I'm under the gun, that too. And when they say these things, I often, it sends chills down my back, because it tells me that the person is not necessarily in control of and dare I say, their life, because I feel that if you are so much in control of someone else's purpose or a deed, then you are perhaps disconnected from the larger reality. And the matrix comes to mind now is you can get controlled by the matrix, or you can actually take control of your purpose in your life. And what makes you a high-performing team member, for that matter, or will bring you to that point, is being in control of your time and what makes you a high-performing team member, not someone else's deadline or pushing that onto the team. So if you feel like you are a person that has that drives and makes decisions based on other people's needs, and that you don't have a common purpose, because the deadline is not the purpose of the team. The deadline is the purpose of one individual, maybe a collection of individuals, but not necessarily the team's purpose. So bringing that back and having that conversation is important. And I feel like this is what this particular team, embraced too much, was trying to meet other people's needs.
So
rather than
one of the things that I would add to that, so when the team takes the deadline as their assignment, right? The deadline is what we need to meet. They are also, in my mind at least, expressing in a very vivid way what you talked about in lack of ownership with the book we were just discussing and also yesterday's episode. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think the ownership where that comes is taking ownership of your life or your purpose or your role, whether it is inside or outside work. I feel like they're very much connected, and we often leave our work life behind, and when we go home, we a different person. And I think that we need to stop thinking that way. We need to start thinking about bringing those two together, because if you are a different person, yes, you are maybe encapsulating or taking a particular character and you put that forward in your work life, but that's not what ownership is. If you are owning your character, you should try and resonate that throughout every part of your life. And make that part of your whole. Those characteristics or whatever that character is that you are, you should embrace that, because otherwise it's just a mask. If you keep putting on masks wherever you go, that's not ownership. That means that you are living someone else's life, and that's not good.
It can be actually quite extreme in some cases, active denial. Right? Like we're denying ourselves being who we are with the hope that we get attention, support, care, and love from others by doing what they want us to do. And that can be self-destructive even for individuals, not just for teams, of course. Great story. And also another deep and interesting conversation. I wish we would have 50 minutes for each of those episodes, but we do need to finish for today, Jean. Thank you for sharing. Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, but tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.